What's up, guys? We're going to be doing a outdoor TXV today on a brand new ream system. It was just installed and then had an issue and was cutting out on head pressure. All of our stuff together and we'll get started. All right, so this is our TXV. Just going to show you how it looks, and there's a couple different options to replacing these. So that's the TXV itself. It's going to be going to have to do the sweat when the indoor is going to be just the nuts that you have to tighten. But this also comes with your two cap tubes that you can go back and attach to that to the condenser coil. But in most situations, you don't have to use these. If they're not damaged and they look okay, you can just disconnect it from your TXV here and just put the cap tube to the side and just get everything sweat in and reattach here instead of having to re-sweat these as well. All right, so we're going to take the top off the unit, get to the TXV. So your kit will come with new foam insulation, so you can cut all of that out to get to your bulb. Take all that off. Here's the cap tubes here that you'll be replacing if you want. It's not really necessary in this situation, so I'm going to leave these, but you definitely want to make sure that they're not going to be touching up here like it looks like these are, because over time that's definitely going to cause a leak. So just make sure they're separated enough where that's not going to be a problem. Just want to get everything, all the straps, get them all taken off. I'm going to take the bulb loose, and I'm going to disconnect it from the cap tubes, and then we'll unsweat these because you don't have much room from where it 90s up. So the best thing to do is just going to be to unsweat it and get it pulled out of the way. So this definitely works best with the crescent wrenches. You get channel locks on it and it's going to tear it up. You also want to make sure you're going the right direction. Just make sure your main objective is to not let this piece twist at all. You just leave it completely still. Alright, so the main thing you want to do before you start to unsweat this is to know what stays and what doesn't. So this whole piece right here for the external equalizer has got to stay all the way around, and this is the joint you're going to be unsweating right here. And then you unsweat this joint as well. Just make sure that this whole piece stays is really the main thing. And you also want to use pretty low heat. You don't want this thing to you don't want to blow through any of the copper, so just take your time, make sure that everything pulls out really smooth, and then you can get everything sanded afterwards. So you can see the reversing valve wire is right there in the way, so we want to make sure that we remove that and get it out of the way enough to where if we was to accidentally go in that direction that we're not going to melt any wires or anything like that. So just make sure everything around it is out of the way enough where you're not going to damage it. And while I'm waiting on this to cool, I was just going to go over how to diagnose the TXV outside when it's a bad TXV. So when I came and checked everything, the suction pressure was dropping really low, like to 10, 15 PSI, and the head pressure was climbing and was over where it really should be. You can also look down into the unit, and you usually can see when there's a bad restriction in the outdoor or indoor for that matter. You'll see the at the cap tubes will start freezing really bad, and then from the power head of the TXV back is going to look fine. So that's usually a big indicator. And you can also switch it over into cooling, and in this case everything worked like it should in cooling because you're bypassing the outdoor TXV when you're doing that. So if everything's working right in cooling and looks good, you switch it over into heating and you see a big time restriction, then you can almost be 100% positive the TXV has got a restriction in it, and you see the ice accumulating on the cap tubes, and it's safe to say you need to replace that TXV. All right, so after it cools off a little bit, just make sure you clean your copper up real good and get it all prepared and ready for when you're ready to solder everything back in. It is important to make sure that this isn't pointing straight up to where any debris or anything from where you've been sanding gets back into the line. Once I'm finished sanding and everything, I typically like to blow a little bit of nitrogen through it just to make sure that we get all that excess flaking or anything that might have gotten into the line, get it blown back out. All right, before we get the new TXV put in place and start to solder it, we're going to just blow a little bit of nitrogen through the system and make sure that there's no debris or anything in those lines, and just try to be as safe as possible doing this process. We're going to just remove our high side hose. First we're going to purge it, and then we'll go to our braze setting and let the nitrogen flow through as we start soldering. You just got to be really careful when you're doing this. Make sure you're not getting any dirt or anything into the TXV itself. First, you want to remove this washer while you're sweating in your other two fittings so that it doesn't melt and get all messed up. So remove it, get everything sweated in, and then you want to put your washer back in before you finish tightening everything down on the fitting here. All right, so we got them both in place and exactly where we want it. We're going to wrap it with a cloth, and then we'll do our purge and we'll flow nitrogen and get started with the soldering. It's okay for these cloths to burn some. I buy a big pack of these terry cloths and just will probably throw it away afterwards anyways. You don't want to use anything that you're wanting to keep. And it can be a little difficult to heat these up when you have this wet cloth so close to the fitting itself. All right, so here's the important part. It's really easy to forget, but we're going to put the washer back in now since we're finished soldering. All right, so we've passed our tightness test. Everything looks good. We're going to go ahead and attach our bulb to our line right here, and then we're going to get it insulated and wrapped up. You don't forget to put your reversing valve plug back on either, or you'll be taking that top back off of the unit to do it. So this is what we've been using, which is just the S-Man with a 4-port. It's definitely not the best thing to use when you're evacuating. So let's show you what we're going to be using now. The AccuTools True Blue hoses. So this is going to be what I'm using is just a one hose setup where we're going to hook up to the suction line, and then on the opposite, we're going to be using the true, or this is the AccuTools BlueVac Mini micron gauge. So we're going to hook it up on the opposite side, and I'll show you exactly how it all goes. So we're going to put our fitting on, get it turned on, and you're just going to hook up your micron gauge on this side, and then we're going to go off of our suction line with the new vacuum setup, and then I'll show you exactly how the app works as well. We're going to go ahead and hook up to our vacuum first, and we'll go to our suction line here. And on this side, you're not going to have your Schrader valve in here. We're going to use our Schrader valve remover tool, and it's rated for vacuums. Just make sure if you have one that it is rated to pull a vacuum. And we'll take this side off of it for now, and then we're going to hook this up first, and then our hose is going to attach to the other side of it. We got everything's wrapped up, finished the vacuum, got the 500 microns. Had a little bit of an issue with the, didn't have the nut tight enough on that TXV, so we had to restart the vacuum, so we didn't go through that whole process on the video, but this is the final result. We got it up and running, added around 6 pounds of refrigerant to the system. Still waiting on the pressures to get to where we want them to be. Going off the charging chart for heating, so that's what we're doing now, just dialing it in. It's really close to being there. So that's about it. I hope y'all enjoyed this one, and we'll see you at the next video.